Special thanks to Cindy and the organizers for allowing me to add this talk at the very end. This is not a technical talk. This is another one of those elevator speech conversations that I tried to put into PowerPoint. We were talking at lunch about the challenges that we have in explaining why wikis within organizations have the potential to add so much value, and how to communicate that in a quick way. So I'm just going to skim through some of these charts, and I'm going to also riff off of the advice that we learned this week about describing how it feels. And I'll get to that chart and I'll comment. So maybe you guys know the Far Side comic. I have appropriated the Far Side comic a little differently. I want to set up a 1, 2, 3 cadence. Okay, so work is about having good people in your organization, doing good work, and getting good results. And so in theory, right, this is our point of entry into the conversation. Now, you can't read this, don't even worry about trying to, but what I'm showing on the left is categories of the different kinds of users. So at the top, we have like administrative assistants, drafting staff, engineering, all the different groups of people with similar skill sets that you have within your organization. Those are our good people. Now you'll see some icons in the left. There's a little key lock. There's the little disk icon, implying that for the most part, people doing their work are managing and handling the data that's related to their work. At the end of the day, the users have a lot of data stashed away, which represents the work that they do. But in order to get good results and make the output of what we do archivable and auditable and usable by cross organizations, we have these other systems that are represented on the right. So there's a stack. I've just sort of neutralized these and called them systems A through systems J. You can think of them as different knowledge, different databases, and different IT systems scattered across your organization that you have to feed them, whether it's a maintenance database or a document control database. Lots of different data silos, and oftentimes they are services that the local organization is not in control of. So our workers on the left are doing the work and feeding the systems on the right. And so there's this kind of mysterious cloud in between the systems. And I jumped ahead a little bit. So each of those systems on the right is a complex animal in and of itself. Oftentimes it's unrealistic to try to train your entire organizational staff on how to be qualified operators for all of these organizational systems that have to be fed. So what you do is you pick a few people, you call them your points of contact, your specialists, and you set them out in front of these systems, and you teach your staff how to work with your internal process POCs, and they're the ones that are ultimately responsible for making sure the data is fed into the systems that it needs to go on. And then we talked at length, or at least I shared yesterday in my talk, about how it's the internal ISO organizational processes that sort of describe how the people on the left provide the artifacts and output data to the people on the right, which go into the systems. But this is how it feels to me, okay? So if this is one of those images that just gets better the more you look at it. We are often utilizing email and email attachments and sharing things all over the place. This image has been around for a long time, but I wanted to locate it as sort of the local way that we sort of accomplish our internal processes. At the end of the day, if all of the work is done well, the data shows up where it needs to on the far right, but how it gets there is where I think a lot of the efficiency and opportunities exist. And again, this is a talk that's trying to real quickly target how we're trying to avoid mishaps. But before we talk about the mishaps, that email chaos that I showed is also replicated multiple times for all of the different processes that we have. So you take that email chaos and multiply it by 30, and you're starting to get close to how a day in the life actually is in a complex organization. So somebody might say, well, look, we've done it this way for a long time. What's the problem, right? This is just how it works. Well, we have a couple of lessons learned databases within the agency, and so recently I had a colleague that was trying to make the case for MediaWiki, and he found through these lessons learned databases references to contributing factors that were related to the way that the organization handled knowledge. And so just real quickly, if you guys recall, back in 2003, the agency had a tragic mishap regarding Columbia, the shuttle Columbia. The investigation board scoured through a very detailed report trying to find all the contributing causes, and certainly there were many. But I just wanted to draw attention to finding 7.4-11, which said that the shuttle program had a wealth of data tucked away in multiple databases, without a convenient way to integrate and use that data for management, engineering, and safety decisions. So oftentimes people were making decisions, and the decision had to be made before there was time to actually go and let the processes take place to get all the data together. And so that's an important lesson learned from the agency. The other one happened in 2013 that I'll draw attention to. There was an incident. There was an astronaut that was doing a spacewalk outside of the International Space Station, and there was a mishap with the suit, and water was accumulating inside the helmet, and there was a very potential bad situation. Fortunately, nothing bad happened, but it was a high visibility close call. And that triggered an investigation, because even a close call, we absolutely have to understand how to avoid having it happen again. And so that produced a bunch of lessons about observations. Observation 15 from that investigation board said that lessons learned databases and corporate knowledge information exist, but they're not always easily accessible. And they're often incomplete and not being fully utilized. Unfortunately, the departure of contractor and civil servant experts is occurring faster than information is collected and passed on. That's the brain drain, right? So we have subject matter experts, people who've been doing a job for a long time, and that knowledge is not captured. It's not corporate knowledge. These people leave, and we're not able to backfill the expertise as fast as we need to. So those were just two very prominent lessons learned from the NASA's database that is focusing on the importance of managing knowledge well, making it readily accessible for decision making. And so for me, this really comes down to the concept of a single source of truth within an organization, not to be mistaken as a single truth in the universe, but within an organization, it is possible to converge on a single source of truth for your organization. The names of your documents, how things are done shouldn't be dependent on who you talk to and in what room you're at. So we have the management of truth by email, and then the idea of a single source of truth. And so if we set that single source of truth in the middle between the work staff on the left and the points of contact for the technical systems on the right, then what we're striving to do is minimize the confusion and complexity that's introduced by managing information through email and attachments with something. And I imagine you guys can imagine what might function as a good single source of truth. We have made the case that something like MediaWiki plus third-party extensions that allow us to do all the things that I spoke about yesterday would be a good idea. And so I'll return to the beginning and say that our 1, 2, 3 process for being safe, effective, and reliable at Armstrong Test Facility is have good people, keep calm and with the on, and get good results. Thank you so much.
Do we have any questions for Rich?
How do you get management to adopt MediaWiki, being that it's a better solution but doesn't seem better?
Slowly.
Okay. And how do you do that slowly?
One victory at a time. So we have been on a journey. So within my organization, those that know me, I have been that advocate within the organization advocating for MediaWiki. And my management has given me opportunities to demonstrate the potential, even though they fully didn't understand, but it has proven itself. So you have to have the support of the management, understanding what's at stake, and the opportunity. Like, there were two major breakthroughs for us. One was the introduction of the file folder tool that I gave a talk on at one of the earlier MW cons. As all of you know, MediaWiki has a flat file system, and so there can only be one readme.txt in the entire wiki. And so what we did was implemented using a simple batch upload and a special feature that it has that allows you to put a prefix into the upload, and then we used subpages and created a file folder class. There's a wonderful talk on that, and that opened up the possibility of allowing us to replicate the experience of attaching documents to wiki articles. And that is just burnt into many people's idea of how you're supposed to work with a system, is to be able to add attachments. MediaWiki Core doesn't have that, but MediaWiki Plus does. And a number of other capabilities. So the electronic workflows, basically being able to implement electronic workflow processes for processes that already existed in a paper form, that was a real challenge because everyone felt like that was a duplication of effort. But what we did was we found certain processes that had no defined process, and we targeted those, and we were able to create for the first time ever a formal process for doing things that were previously completely undocumented, and that's where we started to get all of our gains. And then once you start reaching people and showing them that this is bringing stability and sanity to an otherwise unstable, chaotic situation, then they begin to see how it could help in every other area as well.
Well, tied in with that, what kind of success have you had with, I guess you could call it upselling or expanding the domain of the wiki or wikis? You or someone else says, what about storing the inventory information in MediaWiki, that kind of thing?
Well, let me back up a little bit. So the biggest barrier in hindsight, and I wish I had this realization earlier, the biggest barrier was that when we introduced the wiki, they didn't see it as something that was in between, that was eliminating email. They thought that it was a 13th system that we had to feed. And so many people were saying, well, this is duplication of effort. And they were saying, why should I feed yet another system down here? And what I've been trying to say is, no, this is the effort that we want to minimize. And forgive me, I'm not sure if I answered the question. How do we advocate that we switch to wiki-based systems?
Yeah, sure. It was kind of an open-ended question. So.
Yeah. Well, and so like for inventory, I think that was your example. We do have an official inventory system, but our official inventory system doesn't talk to our system. Like, we have engineers that are managing the configuration and the use of our inventory. So you have one group that their job is to keep track of inventory, but they're not interested in what we're using it for. They just want to make sure we didn't lose it, right? And then you have another group, and their responsibility is to be able to say, this piece of equipment was used on this test on this date for these signals, and they don't have access to the inventory database. So again, what they've been doing is managing all of that in this email managed area. And the inventory database is correct, and the metrology and instrument handling database is correct, but there's no talk between them. So if I understand your question right, what the wiki does is it becomes a single source of truth that includes what the inventory database has, and it includes what the configuration use database has, and it synthesizes them and allows the two different points of contact to be able to work with the folks who are the owners and maintainers of the equipment, and it just pulls it all together, and all of the it allows disparate systems to operate as a whole. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. We are.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.